today we have a special guest from within the community of the three of us, and it is Jennifer Davis. So we interviewed our very own Jenn Davis on the podcast today. Josh and I have done our we've gotten a little more in depth with us, and Jen's talked about some of the stuff she's doing, but we want to bring her on here today to let her tell her story.
We let her speak her truth today.
Yeah, there you go. She had the chance to set the record straight. All the stuff we've been saying.
She had the chance to defend herself.
Yeah, exactly. And as somebody who's been in and out of nursing over the last few years and is on her way back into nursing, she's got a good perspective on why things are not always what they seem to be, and the pluses and minuses of leaving nursing. So it should be a helpful topic for everyone.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Investing RN podcast.
Now we're super enthusiastic.
Today we have a special guest. We have none other than the Jennifer. Can I give your full name since I actually know it?
Whatever.
Condado Davis.
Jennifer Ashley Maddie Maria Davis.
I actually dropped all the middle names when I took Davis. Now it's just Jenn
She's a true Davis now.
Ashley Davis. Yeah.
Colin felt bad because he didn't have any middle names, so you said you'll get rid of all yours.
I felt great.
Yeah. I said forget those.
Anyway, Jennifer is our guest today. So this is our roundtable format, but we decided to do something a little bit different. Me and Colin both had a interview of each other, but we're going to bring Jennifer on to talk all about. We did give a little backstory to Jennifer's childhood, very similar to mine, but we're going to chat with her as if she's the guest, and we're going to ask her questions that she's not prepared for. She's really nervous, and
I actually am nervous. It doesn't take very much to make me nervous, so.
We usually ask each guest if there's anything off limits, like anything we shouldn't talk about. I didn't ask Jennifer that, so.
Yeah, I'll just say no comment.
We'll find out. You can just deny questions. I guess I don't, how do we start this?
I think in the past we have kind of gone over Jen's journey into nursing, but in case people haven't heard that, maybe why don't you just walk us through how you got into nursing? What was your intro to it? Where'd you start? Just bring us up to speed on your nursing career.
So I've been a nurse 12 years now. I got into nursing because most people in my family are nurses. My dad's a nurse. Aunts and uncles are nurses. So that was my introduction, or just my idea of what you did when you go to work. So that's kind of all I knew, and that's what I wanted to be. Like everybody else, I wanted to be a nurse. So I very quickly realized that I had no interest in nursing and anatomy, physiology, not interesting at all to me. So I think that was the first tell that I was like, maybe it wouldn't be the best fit, but my dad was like, no, you've been saying you want to be a nurse for your whole life, my whole teenager life. So they pressured me to finish, so I did. And I've basically been going from one specialty to the next, trying to find a good fit for the last 12 years, and have quit many times in between.
So as far as your most recent job in the nursing field, well, and did you say all the different units you've been in?
Yeah, so I started in med-surg. I started there as a new grad, did my 3-month new grad orientation, whatever that was at the time. I stayed there for about a year and a half on nights, and somehow managed to learn absolutely nothing as a new grad. And then I was just clocked in, passing the meds. I just used it as a little to-do list, and I didn't try to interpret anything. I was just basically serving time. Got really bored. I was like, maybe at the time I want to do CRNA. So I was trying to get into ICU, applied a bunch of times, obviously did so bad in the interviews. They did not even almost give me the position. I was just, very clueless, and they could pick that out.
This episode is sponsored by All Day Investments. If you would like to get your start in real estate investing, but don't want to deal with toilets or tenants, we have several new opportunities that might interest you. Head over to alldayinvestments.co/invest or follow the link in our show notes to book a call with our team. I remember that being a really big, well, not even a struggle, but saying how hard it was to get into an ICU out there in California, which, I mean, that kind of makes sense, to be honest, though. Like, and I was always so confused why you wouldn't move somewhere else, because like where I worked in Tennessee, like you could have gotten in without an interview almost. So I was always really confused why you wouldn't do that in order to get into CRNA school. Come to find out, not everybody wants to be a CRNA like I did, strangely enough.
Well, and I think part of the issue too with I wasn't willing to just go anywhere because I wasn't sold that I would be that much happier still like in the hospital, because at that point I'm only like 2 years in and I'm just, that is the lowest part of my day when I'm in the hospital. So I just don't think I was ever like fully sold that I wanted to do that. So I wasn't ready to move for a job, and I just applied everywhere around me. Like I said, I was not super motivated as a nurse. So I could have done things to prepare, and like I never tried to actually study and like try to understand just, I don't know, whatever nurses understand. It's obviously still I'm struggling. Um, but I just, yeah, I never wanted to put the effort in. So I'd show up to these interviews. I mean, I would do like the very surface level preparation and kind of bomb it at the end or during the interviews. So didn't get anywhere with that. ER was like, welcome, we take all the delinquents. So I fit right in. They gave me, it was like 7 days orientation and dropped me off, and it was a level 1 trauma center, adults and pediatrics, and I thought I was going to kill someone every single day. I was so scared. For about a year, I was like, I would show up like sweating. I had no idea what was going on. I had several times the charge nurse had to bring me aside and be like, Jen, what is going on? Your patient is not even on the monitor. They are septic. And I was like, what is that? And
What is that?
It's like, or like someone told me, like, they're like, Jen, like the person, they have a UTI, all these things. Like, what are you doing? And I was like, how do you know they have a UTI? And he was like, well, did you see the urine came back? And I was just like so confused. I was like, but I'm a nurse. I'm not supposed to interpret this. I'm just like doing the task items. And he's like, you got to go in and check your results. And then you need to prompt the doctor. You need this, you need that. And that was all very new to me. That was like 2 years in. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was not paid to think. Why am I here?
At the same time, though, I remember you saying like what type of, because I was always curious what kind of questions they would ask, because I kind of didn't really have an interview into the ICU because I was already working there as a nurse tech. So I was just basically in. So I didn't really interview to get in. And I remember asking you some of the questions that they would ask you. And I remember thinking to myself, like, why would you ask that question? Like, who do you think you are? You think you're like the king of ICU and you're asking these questions?
How many ICU interviews did you actually have?
I probably only got 3 or 4 interviews. And that was like, I can't remember. I think I was already doing ER. Oh, I was already doing ER by that point. There was like several different times in my career that I was like, oh, maybe I do want to do CRNA. I got to get into an ICU. The ER was super fun for a minute after I wasn't scared to death every shift. And then I finally did become a much better nurse. And by the end of my ER career, I would say I'd be very comfortable if like any of the family had to come to me. I knew what I was doing by that point, 10 years later.
It was before then.
But
So I've worked with Jen, and I will vouch for her as a nurse. Like, she's not all dangerous in terms of like nursing practice, and a lot more knowledgeable now. She's selling herself somewhat short. It was a rocky start for sure, but then somewhere around,
it was very rocky.
I think somewhere around like middle of 2014, she like got this like new burst of encouragement. I forget what it was. Something changed.
That's why they're calling in ER.
Something changed her life for the better.
That is true. I did start to care a little bit more.
And one of the ICU interviews that you had was so I worked at Glendale Adventist, and I'm going to just fully throw this guy under the bus because he was words we can't say on this podcast because we're trying to be clean. But his name was Panus, and he was the director of the ICU, and he was like the just nastiest human being that I've ever worked with. And maybe some people liked him, but it's just like more evidence of like just like this like nurses eating their young, and he just I don't know if he was worse to her because of me, but like the fact that he was interviewing the family member of an employee, you would think there would be like some level of respect or whatever, and he was just like just made it a point almost to like just grill her on all these questions that, like you say, Josh, like A, why do you need to know that, and B, like
Yeah.
a lot of people in the ICU probably didn't even know the answer to these questions. So it was just like almost like this personal thing.
Yeah.
He was like grilling me on like vent settings, and at this point I worked in the ER, and we have respiratory that comes in and kind of deals with that, so I'm not familiar with the exact things. So he was like grilling me on those things. He was asking me to trace the pathway from I think it was the femoral artery, like all the way through the heart. And again, I know the things I should be doing, but I do not know the picture of like the processes of the blood flow and all that stuff. And just even like I'm learning the heart stuff right now since I'm about to go into cath lab.
It starts red, and then at some points it turns blue.
Exactly.
But I think that's what's also interesting is like now, obviously, like knowing Jen a lot better at this point, like realizing that you're much more like of a perfectionist and more focused on detail and stuff like that. The ER like gives you like this like scratching the surface like knowledge. Obviously there's like some people that get really into like learning and teaching themselves, and like more power to them, but like it gives you like this kind of general idea of a lot of different things. And so yeah, like you knew basic vent settings, but like nothing like more advanced than just like the basic stuff.
Yeah.
Now it's kind of like interesting because I think looking back at like med surge, and it was kind of your own fault, but like by not investing like the time and energy into like learning the stuff, you like, I know I can see now like you don't like not being like almost an expert in a certain field.
Yeah.
I think that like kind of leads to a whole different set of problems for you. But like, why do you think it was that you didn't invest like the time and energy as a med surg, as a new nurse, to like become an expert, or even in that field?
There's probably a lot of reasons. One of them just being I was young. I was 21 when I started working as a nurse, and all the time patients were asking me if I was in high school. Like I was young. I looked young. It was the first time in my life I really was making some money. So of course I was blowing it all as soon as it hit the bank account. So I was not focused on any kind of long-term anything. It was like I was living day to day really. And I was working night shift, and Colin can vouch to this that I do not do well. I'm a terrible human being when I do not get like a full 8 hours of sleep. I will physically get sick. I just do not work well, and night shift is like an absolute disaster for me. So I was on night shift as well when I started. So I think there's probably a lot of reasons that I was just not at all thriving. And yeah, like you said, like personality wise too, I really wish that nurses, like in the beginning, or it was an option, like to test or do an assessment or something that you could figure out where you might be well placed in the hospital, because I definitely have gone from several different fields where, like you said, I just don't think they really go well with how I like to prepare or how I like to work, because I definitely am a very detail oriented and kind of perfectionist in a lot of things. And the ER is like absolute chaos, and I usually do pretty badly in chaos. So I think there might have been some of that. Even in med surg, it can be extremely chaotic. It's kind of just broad. You just have all these different things. But I'm excited about the new position that I'm going into soon, because it is actually a very detailed, and you, like you said, you kind of be an expert in that one thing. And I mean, to even CRNA, I think I might have actually done really well in that had I been able to get through ICU, because now looking back, I think I might have done really well in ICU, but by the time I needed to do that, I was already in ER culture. And I mean, that's very different groups of people. And, I mean, I had my best friends at ER, and we all crap on ICU, and, it's like...
In a fun, friendly way.
In a fun way, yes. But
If you either work in ER or ICU, you know it's not in a fun way. They hate each other. Let's say it how it is.
But it's like I was already like leading into that. You know, I'm leading into the more adventurous side.
See, that's what I think it is more than that. It's like ER nurses like talk trash about ICU, like, oh, these guys like they want to know if the patient can walk. Like, come on, dude. Like, but but like ICU nurses, I feel like legitimately do not like ER nurses, and that's just me.
I did not.
Well, that confirms my suspicions.
You guys were in such a hurry to offload critical patients. Like, it's almost like you were just like, this person's sick. Let's get him out of here quick.
Absolutely.
Which makes sense. Like, I agree that's how it should be. But to the point where there was one time where I got a patient that he arrived to the unit, he had 0 pulse. And when we were trying to figure out how long he had no pulse, there was no clue of how long he had no pulse.
That's critical. That's very critical. That belongs in ICU.
He had no business.
That is way too sick for the ER.
Did you check a pulse ever? No, he was not. He was not well. We needed to get him to ICU.
And we're only laughing. We're not laughing, obviously, at like the fact that somebody was dying, but just like, yeah, like it is. Yeah, there's definitely like a lot that slips through the cracks, but it's like you got like several different people, new ones coming in, so it's just like, yeah, sometimes maybe we are a little too quick to ship them off to elsewhere, but
yeah. Well, you've got a critical patient, and then you can have you can have more than one critical patient, and then you can have some other people as well, which it feels very unsafe. It really sometimes does feel like the best place for them is to not be here because I cannot give them all my attention, and everybody else is in the exact same boat, like overloaded. So everybody's like,
and I guess in the defense of the emergency room, that only happened one time.
And that was enough.
but that's what you're gonna base your judgment on of all
ER nurses, all million of them, or however many
no, it's definitely there's some, but it's everywhere. And like for me, it's like I got frustrated with like the floor and like the ICU, but at the same time, like I realized like I'm not gonna go work over there because like it's not a good fit for me. And so like, and I also realized there's like a whole different set of problems that they're dealing with. So I was like, try to be patient, but there were times when it's like, dude, like I got to get back and give this guy a turkey sandwich. Like I don't have time to be talking about all this kind of stuff. Like there's some stuff going on back in the ER, but
I've got a homeless person that is ready to kick me at any moment. I need that.
Yeah. So now but now you're going back to the hospital after you've been out of it for a couple of years. You've done, just kind of fast forward and skip through some of it. You did ER, we did travel nursing together. We did you've done PACU, you've done pre-op.
Which PACU and pre-op was pretty all right. That was a great break after ER. That's a lot more regulated and clean, and they had all their protocols and all these things, which I thought that was it was a great breather. But it is a little bit too much patient care for me. We still have them for like an hour. I'm like, oh man, and like hello and
like
goodbye.
You're either in pain or nauseated.
Yeah, I'm like,
can't handle it.
Man, someone's really got to take care of you, and that shouldn't be me.
But it is interesting that it's like, you assume like within nursing, it's like you have to take care of patients, and you kind of do to a certain extent, but it's like anesthesia. It's like, hi, nice to meet you, propofol. Like, with
Isn't
cath
nice.
lab, it's
I like.
yeah, and cath lab is kind of something similar where it's like Jen, being the personality she is, doesn't like the like interactions as much. Like I don't mind small talk. Like I'll talk to somebody about nothing for an hour, whereas you two are like a little different in that. And you guys, I think it's like less with Josh and then even less with Jen in terms of like the small talk and all that. So finding your way into like another specialty, and it's interesting because it's like Jen was actually just talking to somebody today, another nurse, and it's like this whole thing of like, okay, when do I leave nursing, and like when do I like risk something else, leave nursing and risk something else versus like sticking it out if you're miserable. But like, I think it'll be interesting to see how you enjoy cath lab, because it could be a great fit for you.
I don't know. I am very hopeful because I think, it's taken years to figure out. I mean, honestly, just growing up, figuring out who you are and what you need to work well and be happy. And it's taken time to figure that out. And now I think that I will be well placed within nursing. And now that we have the real estate as well, we also have like our investment strategy in the works. So it's really going to be completely different going back now versus then, when it's like, this is the only thing I have going for me. Now we have this portfolio growing, and yeah, it's just a peace of mind knowing that I'm not reliant on this one job for the rest of my life.
Well, and so kind of going back to the whole investment strategy and property management portfolio and all that stuff. So you basically, and we made a video about it recently that was supposed to be kind of funny. Hope you guys liked it. If you didn't go see it, go look at it. But basically talking about the property management business, basically, that you built. So let's talk about that a little bit. And from your perspective, what did you think it was going to be, and what did it turn into? And then we'll get into what it's like right now.
Okay, so it started, what I thought it would be is just me kind of contributing to the business in the area that I saw we are really lacking. Early on, I was only a silent investor, maybe. Why are you laughing, Colin?
I just say really needed, like Josh and I weren't handling it, but whatever.
Yeah, we were crushing it.
You were crushing it.
Crushing it.
You know, early on, we were going in 50-50 as families. And I had no idea about the real estate, and that was all like Josh, that was you and Colin discussing that. No idea what's going on. And months into it, I feel like it was close to the end of the first year at least. Maybe it was even longer. That I asked what was our cash flow, like how are we actually doing with these properties? What is our income? And there were no answers to that. It was just a feeling that we were doing well.
Good feeling.
In our small defense, like, we had one property for 6 months. We had our second property. We didn't have more than 2 properties for like a year. How long? A year and a half, probably. So it was really easy to like figure it out, like to backtrack and figure it out, because we didn't have a lot to show. But it was once we bought that portfolio of 11. At that point, we had 13 units, and that's when it kind of got out of hand really fast.
And I think that is when I actually asked about it, because we actually had a few more. So I guess that was like 2.5 years, 3 years into it, 2.5. I don't know.
You guys.
Who cares about timeline? The point is that questions were asked, and there were no answers. And I was like, I'm here. I am in the business now. You have no choice. What needs to be done? And I mean, to be fair, I was figuring it out for a good amount of time as well. I mean, I'm still figuring this out because I don't know. I did no property management before doing that. So it was supposed to be just this thing that I could quickly do on spreadsheets. And then it turned into, 20, 30, 40, 50 checks that were being mailed to me at different times of the month. And people were just paying whenever they felt like it. And that was a huge headache, and trying to track that. And then I was trying to enforce like late fees and all these things that felt impossible to manage on pen and paper, essentially. So then I decided that we had to really start to mimic a real property management company. And then from that, I feel like that's where things kind of scaled.
And at this point, Jennifer was the perfect person to come in and do this, because if somebody came to Colin and was like, hey, I can't pay rent for 5 days. Can you just give me a break? I'm good for it. Colin's like, sure, yeah. Do you need 10 days? Like, just take your time. You'll be fine.
We'll get nice through guy. This together. What can I
say? And then Jennifer comes in and is like, no, you can't do that. Like,
I'm like, every single day you're late, you're paying a late fee. This is not okay.
Business. You gotta run it like a business, because that's exactly what it is. And if you don't, then people will take advantage of you.
And I mean, like, just kind of going back to, because, well, I will say, like, you guys are really good about never letting the truth get in the way of a good story, because it was you guys are just like so far off on your details.
As detail people. Thank you.
Well, first of all, we had 2 properties. We bought a 9-unit portfolio that got us to 11, not 13.
Details.
And then going back to the property management thing, like, yeah, minor details. But it was never like our intention to do our own property.
My math is still good.
It was never our intention to do our own property management. This kind of came through from a deal where it was like the first couple deals we had split 50-50, like our family, Josh's family. And then coming to the third deal, we found this portfolio, and there was an opportunity there that we saw, but we had all our cash invested in our second property. So Josh used his HELOC, home equity line of credit, to purchase the property, and the agreement was that we would manage it. And I don't really know, going into that agreement, like, that either one of us, me or Jen, expected to like be handling property management on such a large scale full time going forward. I think we just kind of thought like this is like a one-off thing. We'll manage this property, and then I think eventually we all kind of thought we would hand it over to a third-party property management company.
I honestly just did not think it
Yeah, I don't
forward.
think I really thought it through either. It was just kind of like a survival mode thing. It's like, we got this portfolio, it's too good a deal to pass on. Like, all right, we're going to do this. We're going to figure it out. Yeah, make some spreadsheets, and it's kind of evolved from there. So the lesson there, I guess, would be like, don't let your lack of experience or ability stop you from moving forward, because here we are, 90 or 100 units later, and it's like, just keep figuring it out.
109 pads. Colin's gonna need to check me because 109 sounds better than 90. So, but I think that's our total pads right now, our total units.
Total pads, including empty pads, like, I think we're at about 110. I think economically occupied, we're like just under 100. So we have a few empty pads we got to fill. But yeah, like, we've been able to do that because we just keep pressing on. But like, going into this, so when we left nursing, or I guess you left nursing, what time was that for you quitting? How many times had you left nursing at this point for this most recent one?
Probably lost count. I'm thinking this is probably like 8 or 10 times that I've quit. I don't know.
I don't know if it's been that much. You've jumped around to a lot of different jobs, but actually, like, getting out of nursing, it's probably been like 3 or 4. But you were, so kind of out of necessity, we started this property management thing for our own portfolio. But then, can you tell us about what that turned into in yours and mine and yours, in our personal life, not including Josh, but how that kind of turned into something for us that has floated us for these last, I guess it's been about a year and a half now.
Yeah. So because we started, like you're saying, with the 11 units that we started managing for our company, that slowly grew. I started to figure out a more efficient system for that, and slowly started to separate the entities from the real estate, and it was a separate property management company. Yeah, I just started learning about that and studying it. And I mean, I was listening to podcasts on property management and YouTube videos, and just trying to figure out what programs people are using to streamline that. And as we were starting to feel more comfortable, we started to look around the building that we're living in Southern California. We're like, man, how easy would it be to manage a building we live in? Because we're currently managing all these units out of state. Like, that's felt like the hardest thing, is not having eyes on these properties, and people are just kind of getting away with stuff because we're not there walking the property. And we were like, how easy would that be to do that here? So we kind of talked about it for a while, and like, I don't know, just, yeah, we were talking about it and hoping for it to work out. And then at some point, Colin's like, I'm just going to talk to the property manager here and see what she says, if she has any advice for us. And you approached her to ask about property management, and she's like, would you like to manage this building? And it like totally took us off guard. She was like, yeah, absolutely, we'll manage this building. We happened to approach her, Colin approached her at just the right time, when she was like burnt out, didn't want this contract, was frustrated with dealing with the owner. We know exactly why, because we've been dealing with that now. But at the time, we were like, this is amazing. It replaced one of our incomes. And that has been what like was able to really float us through the last, like you said, last year and a half, 2 years. It was a great opportunity because we're, mostly working from home, the building that we live in. I just kind of integrated them into the property management, and thankfully I was already had that separated from our investing. So I was able to just treat it like a completely separate business. And now it was like an actual profiting business, because now we have this building in Southern California, which was bringing in a whole lot more than, our small investments in Wisconsin that are extremely different class.
How much do you get paid as a property manager? Because you left nursing to do property management. You said it covered like one of your incomes, but you both quit nursing. So how?
It's negotiated like off a percentage of gross rents. And then there's a bunch of other fees that also go along with property management, which I didn't really know all the fees that you could charge for when we first took over this contract. Since then, we decided to hire a third-party property management for our own company, one of the mobile home parks, just to kind of test it out, see if it was actually more helpful having it someone else manage, or if it's better that we do it. And we now see there's like a whole list of things that you can charge for that we did not charge. But yeah, property management can be pretty profitable if you do like really charge for everything that you can. We negotiated percentage off of gross rents, and then we had just like leasing fees, and that's kind of good actually. We just did like leasing fees, which you can do like maintenance fees and vacancy fees and eviction fees. We don't do any evictions here though. That would be a nightmare. But there's, you can kind of charge for anything you do. Like the management is just like straight across the board. That's like anything additional is also paid additionally.
Just to be called the manager, you get what is it, 8 to 10% of gross rent? Or did you already say what you got?
We did 9%. We negotiated 9%.
Just to be called the manager, and then
yeah. And I think that was probably even on the low side, since I've talked to a few other people in the area. I think we probably could have charged more. And we were thinking at some point that we would move out of this building and hope to still manage it. But now we've kind of figured out that this is with the owners and the things that they're doing by the law and not by the law. We don't really want to be tied to this place much longer. So we're like, it's just best if we move on. But at the time, we decided to still pay rent, because they were like, oh, well, why don't you guys just not pay rent, and we'll pay you a little on top of that. And we're like, no, we want an actual salary, and we'll still pay rent. That way, if we wanted to leave, we thought we'd still keep the contract, but things change.
Well, I guess what would you say now? We're 2 years into this. Well, we're like a year and a half into managing the property we live in here in LA. I don't know. I think we've talked about this already, that we're getting ready to move and go back to nursing. But looking back over the last couple of years compared to the time that you were in nursing and you were miserable, like what would you say? Like, do you think it's worth it? Would you do it all over again? How would you change it if you were to do it again?
Yeah, I would say that the grass is not always greener on the other side. I needed to be out of nursing like the day that I quit. I didn't really plan too much ahead. This last time, I just knew that we were investing, and I could see the end in sight without really knowing when that was. So I kind of thought that everything else would pick up before I needed to go back. That's kind of before we knew what we were building as well. But I just traded one problem for another. Property management is kind of like nursing. It's just like problem solving for a set of tenants all day, and you're collecting rent. So there's about in as good a mood as they are in the hospital. So it was a lot of frustrating conversations and just kind of chasing people down. And I really didn't like that, especially as I was trying to figure out how to do more automated systems. Once I figured out the automation and just moving people to like better software, that eliminated a lot of the headaches. But I can't say that I would felt so much freer. I'm doing property management all the time. It's a around the clock position. There's always things that need to be done. There's always improvements. There's always letters. There's always notifications. There's always a call coming in. So as much as I was no longer in the hospital, I really, really miss the clock in, clock out. I don't have a care in the world. I'm going to go sit at the beach and fall asleep on my beach towel or something. Like now it's like I have to always make sure my phone is on. I've got my, like, I just feel like I always have to be on. And I don't love that. I'm trying to figure out how to navigate that.
So at what point did you, because I know you have a couple employees now. So at what point was it out of necessity because you were just going crazy? You're like, I can't do this. I'm going to hire somebody to help me. Or just talk about that transition. Did you hire somebody because you're like, oh, maybe it'll help? Or do you hire somebody because you're like, I'm not going to do this?
What, like, how did that look? Why did you do that? And then like, how has that set you up going back to nursing? Because you're going to be going back to nursing full time. You're going to be training 5 days a week. So this team that you've built, how does that now prepare you to go back to nursing?
So I started adding to our team out of necessity, and I felt like I was underwater for a bit. And I also still am like part-time stay-at-home mom, so that was very difficult for a while, and I definitely need the support, but also I just didn't know that was an option sooner. So we're using some VAs, and they are a lot more affordable than our US based employee.
They took our jobs.
They're stealing our jobs.
No, but it's really been a lifesaver.
He's not listening to this.
If Colin's dad is listening to this, he's gonna.
No, he didn't figure that part out. Only because he doesn't know how. But
No, definitely not.
But yeah, so sorry. Go ahead, Jen.
Yeah, no, it was basically out of necessity, and I was going crazy. And once I figured it out, it absolutely changed the game for me, because now I have some virtual assistants who have been doing this longer than I have. So they have more experience. Sometimes I ask them questions like, what do other people do in this situation? And she'll be like, oh, well, previously my other company did this, this, and this. And I'm like, that's a great idea. Let's do that.
And then they fired me.
Right.
Just kidding.
No, it's been great, because now I feel like I'm actually managing, and I'm not doing all of the tasks and trying to figure out how to move forward. So now it feels like we're actually building a company, and people are doing things much better than I did, because I was figuring everything out on the fly. So it's been definitely game changing. And now that I'm going back to nursing and working full time, I can actually do that. There's no way I could have done that before and still like run the property management. But now, even though I'm going to work full-time hours, I can check in at the end of each day or check in at the end of the week. I mean, my goal is like to check in every week and just make sure we're on track and things are being addressed. And yeah, I mean, that's the only reason why I can even go back to nursing now and still have all this going in the back.
So I hear a lot of these business owners or business builders where they talk about when you're a startup, you have to do everything. You're like task checker offer.
You're still that, Josh.
Carry on.
But they always say like until you're actually like outside of all the tasks and just managing, then you're really just your own employee. So now it sounds like you're almost a business owner rather than your own employee.
What's that like?
So how is that?
It's a lot better.
And then how are you gonna be able to do that while you're working full time in the hospital? Because we're still buying properties, like, are you not involved in any of the tasks now? Like you have, your systems are so good. They're just so good.
I wouldn't say that they're that good, but they're a lot better. They're a lot better. And yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm going to be like actually managing the movement, and Colin might step in a little bit while he's only working 3 shifts a week, or I'm not sure. How many shifts are you working?
Must be nice, Colin.
I'm a kept man.
I noticed a subtle jab at Colin for not working a whole lot.
He just got his realtor's license, so he's going to be doing a lot of stuff. Lots of work. Yeah, and he's working night shift going forward, so.
Yeah, it's great. Lots of time for list building and Zillow, so it's going to be awesome.
Nice. In the ER still? That sounds like the perfect opportunity for an ICU move.
Well, they actually
have more
offered
time
me,
for
they're
list
like,
building.
if you want, you can cross train, and it's like, I think so much of our decision to go back to nursing and where we're actually moving to Napa, which is close to where I went to college. So I'm familiar with the area, familiar with the hospital, but like it's been a hard pill for our family to swallow down here in LA because it's like my parents are really close, my brother's an hour away, and it's like trying to explain it to them. It's like it's hard, but it's like as nurses being in the hospital, and they understand it now, it's like the quality of life working in a smaller hospital versus working in like these big city facilities where it's like, you know, they're seeing all these patients. It's funny, every time I interview for an ER, I feel like the manager's like almost like bragging about how many patients they see, and I'm just like, you're not selling it the way you think you are. Like, I don't want like give me less. And not because like I'm lazy or anything. It's just like I don't know. I want to get in. I want to have like a good steady patient load. I want to like cruise through the shift, and I'm not like trying to like be out here like bragging about how I'm like some super nurse, and I'm not putting it on my license plate. Like, more power to everybody who does. But
So I'm always preaching that I love critical access hospitals because it's to your point, like it's a work-life balance. It's a lifestyle.
but it is, and maybe I'll be the lifestyle RN from now on. But I don't know. But
Hey guys, let us know in the comments. I've been trying to get him to change his Instagram handle. He will not do it.
I will always be Colin Frump Doctor, so just know that. But the yeah, no, it really is. It's just like a lifestyle thing because it's like I could do the traumas, like I still enjoy all that stuff, but it's like where I'm at, it's like, yeah, like my focus is on real estate as a whole. Obviously, like if I'm in the hospital, like I'm gonna be 110% taking care of patients, whatever, like, you know, I'm gonna be safe, I'm gonna be compassionate, all those things. But it's like once I clock out, it's like I'm thinking about real estate. I'm thinking about like hanging out with the family and all that stuff. So it's like, yeah, it's just a big lifestyle difference, and that's why we chose that. Um, and then as far as like I'm going to completely circle back now to the VAs. I think we just went on a huge tangent, but in terms of the VAs, what so I think like just like everything else you hear on these like podcasts and reels and stuff like that, it's like, yeah, hire a VA, you outsource all this work to them, blah blah blah, it clears up all this time. But it wasn't actually that simple, like to just plug a VA in. So like, how was that process, and what did you do that made it simple, and what could you have done better to improve that process of bringing on an employee, whether it's a VA or an actual like on-site employee?
Yeah, that's a great point. I definitely did hire a couple VAs that did not work out initially, and that was mostly because I was not prepared to bring somebody on board. It was a full-time job in the beginning, trying to figure out how to work with somebody where I didn't really have my systems dialed in yet. So I was asking her to help me build like the processes for our company that she didn't understand, and didn't understand our, like, even our portfolio. We have mostly mobile home parks, which is like a unique tenant load on top of just, you know, regular renters. So that was actually much harder. You're right, it was much harder than it like sounds. We went through a few people first, and then I ended up using an agency, which really helped because then they selected people they thought would be a good fit for me based on what I needed and the experience I needed. And then I interviewed with a handful of people and selected one from there. And the one that I have now has worked out really great. And then from there, I was able to use her suggestions to hire other people that she'd worked with and recommended. So it definitely took a lot to get her up to speed. I would say probably 3 months to really feel like she was starting to understand things. We're not having simple mistakes happening frequently, because in the beginning we were having mistakes a lot, and I was trying to figure out, is this my problem? I'm not communicating well, which a lot of the time it was that. This is just new to me. I've never had an employee before. And that is part of the process, just learning how to actually direct other people clearly. I think communication has been probably the biggest issue all the way around the table for us as a company, and just as we're growing and like bringing people on, just the clear communication of what we're trying to do.
So you kind of answered this a little bit, but so like your first hire, first several didn't work out. Maybe a little bit their fault, maybe a little bit your fault. But but it took like 3 months of actual like full, like almost like one-on-one coaching with this VA until she was like ready to actually fly on her own. So what would it be like if you were to hire another person? Do you think it would be so much more simple, or do you think it's just that involved with your first hire to get them like integrated into the culture, into the company?
Well, I should clarify that our first hire, she was part-time. So she's only working 4 hours a day. So that's partly why it took so long, I think, to get her up to speed, is we're only working half days. And I think that it would move a lot faster in the future. I think a lot of that was just me figuring out how to provide tasks for her and then trying to figure out a more efficient way of just going through the task load. Because at first I started with like daily assignments. So then that was a lot to create daily work for her. It was like another job for me to do every single day. And now I moved to like weekly planning. And I'm trying to teach her how or what to look out for. And like at this part of the month, these are the things that we need to address. And at this part of the month, these are the other things that we need to address, so that she is a lot more self-efficient. I don't know. So proactive. I don't know what I'm trying to say. But so that she can do this stuff without needing me to like constantly prompt her. And part of that is just setting up like our operating procedures, is that she'll be able to reference to that and know exactly what we're doing and when. So I think a huge part of the time commitment there was my fault, and just not knowing what I'm doing.
So one of the things that Jenn has been doing, obviously we work in the same office, so I see all the work she's doing, cleaning up our messes,
Or all where she's neglecting.
But like it's you've been using Notion, right? Which is just like another operating management.
Yeah, I love to test out software, and I've gone through so many free trials, paid for quite a few subscriptions. I'm trying to figure out like the best way to manage a team, because aside from the property management, I've also been involved in, I don't know, not like the acquisitions. You guys are doing all of that yourself, but just kind of the direction of the company, like where we're going. And now the podcast, I'm, trying to help plan just the roadmap and making sure we're all on the same page and working on projects that are working together to get us to our goals. So I definitely have felt like we needed more of a structure, and also me just liking software. I think it keeps everything so organized. So we've done a ton of different free trials, but right now we're working on Notion, which really helps everybody see like the board. It's basically Asana, but fully customizable. So I really like that. So it hits the creative aesthetic vibe that I need without being just like this business platform that's super boring.
Which, if you've been following us for any amount of time, you know that the aesthetic vibe has been a point of contention between me and Jennifer.
It definitely has.
So I love hearing you talk about it. It just warms my heart.
So I think, and that's one of the things that I think we've been, maybe has been a strength and somewhat of a weakness for us, is like, we're not afraid to invest in, I guess, technology and things that we think will help automate things, and
in anything that we think will help us in the future.
And I think sometimes like we're a little too trigger happy when it comes to like spending on certain things, like investing in the business. Like, but I, seeing other people, the way they do things and how long they hold on to certain things that, end up being a huge headache and like slow them down from potentially growing even more. Not to say that we're growing at some like tremendous rate and we're super efficient, but like, I think it is nice to like, the whole adapt or die thing. It's like, there's all this technology out there, and like the big companies are using it. These people that are doing really well are using it. So it's like, it's worth trying it. And there's like so many free trials and like low monthly payments you can try. And it's like, we've tried tons of different stuff and probably dumped a lot of money unnecessarily, but we've gotten to a place now where I think we got it dialed in, and it's cost effective, and it's working.
Well, and we also realized at some point of the journey, I'm not sure when, but we decided we wanted to scale and we wanted to have a company, and we wanted to be able to bring people into the company. We wanted it to be more than just us three. And to do that, you have to have a system that you can share with somebody else. You can teach an employee if it's all in your head or if it's all on paper. Like, that's a nightmare to share with somebody else. Like, you have to have this all documented, and that's really the easiest way to scale and to build. You have to have all this information somewhere.
I think the thing too is like, in the building here that we manage, like for a long time, I was doing all the little tasks. Like somebody's toilet was backed up, I'd run upstairs and plunge it. Like if a unit was turning over, I'd be like doing all like the painting. I'd be doing all these different things. And Jen was always getting frustrated with me because she's like, these are like lower paying tasks. Like, do you really need to be doing that? And in my mind, I was like, we need cash flow. Like we need income, whatever. Like I'm going to do this stuff. But then it was like, okay, yeah, this is taking me away. Like, so maybe like I make however much money today, but like I didn't just do all these other things that are going to grow us in the future. And so I started handing the tasks off to another guy on site, and it was like I didn't have to do them. I didn't have to worry about them now. And it was like, I can't think of another word other than blessing, but it was kind of like a blessing for him to have this source of income. So it's like, as you're building and growing, it's like there's other people that you can plug into these positions that can now benefit from that. And they're going to be, not to say like, I don't know if anybody actually loves property management, but like it would be a good opportunity for somebody. And it's like, now you create this thing where you can employ somebody and it can be like this great opportunity for them. So that's what we're trying to build.
And I think one reason why people don't go to the next level in their business is because it is a headache and a struggle, as Jennifer kind of mentioned earlier. Like training somebody for 3 months, that's an intense headache, and it would be so much easier for you just to have done it yourself. So I think that's kind of like a roadblock where business owners don't move to the next level, because it's a lot more of a headache before you get to the sweet stuff or the secret sauce, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, especially if you didn't like lay the foundation for that. That could be a lot of back work that you create for yourself because no one else can do that.
But it's an investment. It's just like investing in a property with cash, like investing that time in the employee, like for those, even if it is 3 months now, like what that's done for the future and like, long term, it's like endless return on the time that you invested in that. I think we're kind of getting towards the end here, but before we get into the final 5, one big thing that I think comes up for a lot of people is like, what's it like to work with family? But your situation's even more unique in that you're working with family, like on 2 different levels with Josh and I, Josh being your brother and myself, actual family. And then the family that you knew you needed and chose, not the one you were stuck with, but the one you chose.
It's been a roller coaster, like you guys know. Man, I mean, it's kind of what everybody worries about.
So I told Nicole this just a few days ago because she was like mad at me for not doing something. And if you listen to our last roundtable, I was like, you can't have the 10s without the 1s. So I'm giving you some 1s right now so you can have the 10s later. That's right.
Yeah, sure.
I like to give Jennifer her 1s so that she can experience the 10s also.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think it was sometime last year that as I was kind of getting into like self-development and reading these books and listening to these podcasts and just really focusing on kind of trying to be, I don't know, like better and kind of be my best self. I remember like praying and asking to be like, I want to be a really strong person. I want to do like these big things in life. And then crazy, life got really hard. Like we started going through all this stuff. We definitely had like all these issues within our own company and just disagreements. And it is hard working with family because we feel like we can say what needs to be said, but then sometimes maybe it shouldn't have been said or it should have been said differently. So I think that's been something I'm definitely figuring out.
You're much less worried about hurting my feelings when you say stuff. Is that what you're trying to say?
I am. Yes, I am. I'm trying to be less blunt. I just want to say what needs to be said and walk away from it. I'm definitely working on that. But I mean, that is part of the huge thing. It's, we're dealing with people that I love, and you guys aren't going anywhere. So that's hard to be able to just know how to say things that need to be said, but also we have to say this and carry on. And also yeah, just knowing when you're wrong, that's been hard because all three of us are pretty opinionated. Probably you and I, Josh, the most.
You guys have a hard time realizing that I'm always right.
Yeah, that is the true problem.
Also, like my skin is thicker than it was 2 years ago, which it's still pretty thin, to be quite honest. Still pretty thin, but it's not as thin as it was.
But one of the things that helped us that we've talked about before is doing these intermetrics disc assessments, like these personality things, just trying to understand how we all operate and how to communicate with each other. And it also kind of landed us in the positions we're in. So real quick, just talk about your role in All Day Investments overall, and then also your role in the podcast. Because even though Jen's not on the episodes with us as much, she's always in the roundtable discussions, and she's been on one guest interview so far, but is very much still a part of this, a little more behind the scenes. But yeah, talk about your All Day Investments roles, your investing RN.
Yeah, so this started with taking the disc assessment, which I think was very, very helpful, and just understanding each other and how we need communication. And yeah, just by our personalities and where our strengths were, on paper, I am kind of in the CEO-ish role, which is a real reaction. We struggled through that for a bit.
But he's still going to complain about it.
I realize she is the proper CEO. She is in the right seat of the company, but I'm never going to make it seem like it was okay.
But also I know that I don't have any experience doing this. So obviously if we could afford an outside CEO, that would probably be the best thing for everybody. But I am where I am. And we're all learning this together. But yeah, I really focus on the business aspect and making sure, we're talking to the lawyer when we need to, or the CPA, and I'm kind of managing the accounts, and, the property management is kind of part of it, but it's also a separate thing. And the podcast, again, just the legal side, making sure we have, it's not really compliance, but it kind of is. And I'm just planning the roadmap of where we're going, because you guys are the ideas guys. You have all these great ideas, but I think I'm the one who knows how to actually make them happen.
Great idea. I didn't hear you say anything about bad ideas.
Yes.
So I'll take that.
I do also shoot the bad ideas down.
Very instrumental in actually making sure things get carried out and actually happen. Otherwise, Josh and I would just be driving around hyping each other up all the time.
Yeah, and really that's kind of it. In the most,
you're the greatest. No, you're the greatest.
In the simplest form, you guys are just absolute hype men, and I just point you to direction, and you guys do so well. But you have to be shown the road.
I will hype every direction until you tell me where to go. This direction needs to be hyped. Gotcha.
I think you're only supposed to have one hype man, but we're both here, and we're both here to stay. So it's
so we're kind of running out of time here. I think there's a lot more. So let us know if you've watched this to the end. I think we should have Jennifer on as another guest, because there's a lot of other stuff that's happening. If she's willing to come back on and share a little more perspective on being a woman and driving a business, hard charging forward, I guess, if you want to call it that. So I think that would benefit all of you guys. So let us know, and we'll save the final 5 for that time, because
That sounds good.
For our next roundtable, it can be now that Jen's comfortable talking to us, we can.
I only need 15 more interviews, and then I will feel much better.
Also, Frozen is about to end, so Indy's no longer.
Yeah, we gotta wrap this up.
Subscribe, do all the things on YouTube. Oh, well, actually, where can people find you? I know people can find you through the Investing RN Pod, Instagram, but where else?
I am on Instagram at It's Just Jen, a bunch of lines, because my name is the most common in the US. You should be able to find me there.
I think it's 4 underscores.
Yeah, I think
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, 4.
But it's just Jen, or Investing RN Pod. Yep. And if you gave us some questions to ask during this interview, I'm sorry we didn't get to it. We ran out of time. We'll put all of them into the next roundtable, which we're going to be trying to do once a month. Occasionally life gets in the way, but we'll try.
Oh yeah, we could do a live or something.
Alrighty.
Sounds good.
Yeah, see you in a couple of seconds when I walk out to the living room.
Right. Let's have some dinner. See ya.
See you on the next one.